All right. Hello. How's the sound? You good? I think I fixed the mics from compared to last time anyway. So hello, good evening. Welcome to the Paint Fumes live stream on Monday night. I'm Lynell Ingram, the artist. And today we're going to be starting a new watercolor painting. And it is only technically partially new because I had used the sheet to do a little test, kind of a sketch on. And I'm going to leave it on there and incorporate it into the whole piece, which will, at the end, become a mixed media piece on watercolor paper when it's all said and done. But I have a nice Arches cold press here that I'm going to be using. This is 14 by 20 inches. Kind of odd size, but it works. And here we are. I have my sketch done. Flip that over. Okay. Hello, Mary Beth. Good evening. How are you today? I rewatched a section of my last stream and I saw that the audio levels were really low. So I think that I fixed that and hopefully will be better this week and going forward. I think I'd had them right at one point and then I had to re-hook up the microphone to my software. And I didn't think to put the filter on. I have to do a gain, an audio gain to make it loud enough. So as long as I don't forget to set that up again, if I have to reconnect my microphone, should be good. Should be good going forward. So I am doing I'm just like pre-moistening my pan here, my pans, and I'm going to put some water on this side so I can clean this part up a little bit. It's a little messy and I actually like to have some colors already kind of started, but I'm gonna clean this side up so I have some place to mix some fresh color. Yeah, this one that's on my board sideways. This was a little just sketch exercise that I'd done. And I was drawing a bunch of these old images. They were women that had been hospitalized for being hysterical. These were old photos from about the early 1900s, early-ish. So here, if I turn this for a second so you can see a little better, maybe. Yep. My board's too long. Kind of down here. So this was a woman that was having what they called a lucid moment. And while I was at a friend's house, I did a little sketch and I colored it in. It was a black and white picture, so just sort of added a little random color on there. Let's see, let me get my photo reference up. But this is the character, and this actually comes from discussion we had in the stream where I was looking at a while ago, like coming up with ideas. I needed to find some new ideas, and I talked about doing a piece in my current series where it's going to be, I'm trying to make sure I'm fitting as much of this in as I can. It's going to be about, where did I put my paint palette? Oh, jeez. Like being overwhelmed and scatterbrained and all that kind of stuff. So my figure is here and I will have all these like thoughts sprouting out of her mind, and that will be like a lot of the mixed media part. So that is what we will ultimately end up with. So that is the plan. I'm going to start with a highlight layer. Outside of doing my sketch, I didn't give this a whole ton of thought about my how I'm going to attack it today at a time, because I never think that way. But I'm going to start with my lights, working light to dark with watercolor. So let me get some nice warm yellow tone I'm going to use. And maybe, there we go. Something a little like almost orange-ish. With a little more yellow. This is a very big painting pad to be working on, but because I'm really only focusing on painting this area, it kind of works out. I don't have to worry too much about trying to have everything off of the surface, so I can actually have my palette here where you can see where I'm doing any mixing and such, that kind of stuff. So let's see here. I'm going to get into, need to decide what areas need to stay white first and foremost. And then I will work in highlights. I'm working wet on dry at the moment. I have not pre-wet the paper at all. So I have not yet figured out what I need to do to be able to stream music outside of the one track that I have uploaded for the streaming soon scene. I do want to figure that out, just, you know, to have something kind of nice and relaxing going on. I will continue to figure it out. It's like I know how to do it in theory, but there are some issues with my computer playing nice with the software. You know, compatibility, I guess, but I'm working on figuring out a way around that. I think I have to just create like a big playlist. I can't just play the music directly from like a streaming service where I have the rights to do it from. This character, what I'm looking at for this this piece has a lot of warmth even in some of the shadows, like the shadows that are facing that direction. So along like this side of the leg. On the back, she's going to be lit from behind. But here it's kind of in shadow, but it's a very warm, there's a lot of warmth in the shadow. So I'm going to see how it works if I try to use less layers with this painting. I would like to see if I can pull that off. Because I tend to work with lots and lots of layers built up. But if I want to keep it more vibrant in color, which I would like to experiment with keeping it less earthy and a little bit more vibrant, I'm going to try to see if I can manage that by using less layers of paint. So that kind of like requires a little extra thoughtfulness. To really determine where the lights and darks are in the initial layers, not just getting broad strokes and then refining it later. So you kind of want to have some level of refinement sooner with this approach. And I haven't really tried to do this before. So no time like the present. Oh, I did, Mary Beth, you'd suggested for my last stream trying mineral paper. And I looked that up and it sounds like it would be really right on about what I would want for what I'm trying to achieve with that, with being able to fold paper to go onto another canvas. And I've ordered some, so I'm really excited to get it and try it. So thank you so much for that recommendation. I'm looking forward to messing around with that. All right. Well, this is coming. Delivery. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's got the strengths that I was missing in the vellum paper for what I was looking for. I will give it a try. There's also an element of user error too, you know, where I'm not having not used it before and not being the best with the medium, and then of course folding paper is not something I have a lot of experience with, and I'm not necessarily doing the best job of that either. So I'm going to need some more practice before I figure out exactly what I'm doing and doing it like in any kind of final manner. So that's something I will need to work on for sure, but not too bad. I'll get there. I'll figure it out. I should just probably sit and practice folding, doing folds while I'm watching like TV when I'm relaxing and that sort of thing. I'm an expert at one fold in origami, just one, nothing else. This figure is kind of small compared to a lot of my other paintings, like as a whole. So this is going to be much more about her kind of physical, the expression of her posture, more so than like capturing her really detailed portrait. Definitely not so worried about the portrait. It's going to be a little rougher, less refined. Because I don't know when to quit, I also bought some gesso, gouache. I bought a gouache set recently, so I'm going to be experimenting with that too. It's so messed up when folding complicated stuff. My brain just says, "Oh no." Yeah, I started out reading directions when I first tried to do it, and I was just endlessly lost. Like I could not understand how they were getting from A to B at all. So I ended up having to watch a video, which helped a lot. Still wasn't great at it, but it definitely helped. Like seeing and following along that way made a big difference for me. And luckily, with such things as YouTube, you can find videos about anything these days, which is great. I have a lot of like, oh, I can figure out how to do that moments about almost anything. It's a little bit of like, a little bit of a DIY attitude combined with a bull in a china shop kind of approach that I can have about a lot of things. Um, like we replaced a microwave. It's one of those that installs above your oven, your stove, so that it's the ventilated one also. And like I could probably do that myself and save on the installation. So I watched some videos, and this time I did not get like I started watching the videos thinking it would be easy, and then it got a lot more complicated than I expected it to, and immediately I'm just like, okay, never mind. I'm not doing that. Uh, we ended up being able to get it through someone that was able to include the delivery and installation, so that helps a lot because man, everything's expensive. we've been without a working microwave for, how long have I lived here? 12 years? So 11 years. We've not had a working microwave here. It broke. And at first it was like, oh no, what are we going to do? But then we started warming up our food in the oven. And that was, even though it takes a little bit longer, it was like infinitely better heated up that way, the food was. And it just became then not a very dire thing after that. And now we have it. Still not using it much. But the idea that I can warm up a cup of coffee that I've had for a few hours and forgot to drink, that's kind of nice. I do like that. Starting to add some reds. Where I see them in the tone of her skin, where the shadows are being cast in different areas. Right. It's an interesting position with all the folds in the skin. It makes for a little bit more challenging but interesting painting that way, I think. I missed some kind of key details when I initially made my sketch, but I think I can work it out. Ears are always lots of red in ears. It's like that little cartilage that sticks up away from the body, so the light really, really goes through it. Noses a bit too, but the ears especially. Face is pinker than all the rest of her. The rest of her is more yellow, warmer tones. Her face seems a little cooler. It's very easy for me when I'm doing something like this to really get kind of absorbed in the moment of what I'm doing. so I apologize if I get quiet too much. Just start concentrating and the brain starts going, then then I'm in trouble. Just culling out any place where there's pink or red tones right now. Right here. Like the face, there's also a lot of pinks in the hands generally. And the fingers especially. In the right lighting, they can be a little translucent also in a weird way. I try to mark down when I sketch the things that I think are important to me while I'm painting. Sometimes once I get into the painting, I'll realize that I've kind of missed an element that I'd really like to have or see. And that's how it goes. Every time I do it, learn a little bit more, get a little bit maybe better, like anything. Hopefully I don't get like, there's no issue with YouTube for painting this. I know they don't like nudity per se. This is yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's not like I'm monetized, so they're gonna take that away from me. Small potatoes still. Sort of trying to keep track of also what's still wet and what isn't on my paper too as I'm going. Smudge out the hairline a little bit. It's never a hard line, not really. Less red in her lower legs. it towards the knees mostly, and the ankles a little bit. I saw an incredibly interesting movie this weekend, and it's something that I've kind of been interested in seeing for a while. Kept meaning to like wait to see it with some other people, and I just watched it. Um, it's Mad God, and it's really interesting. It is a stop animation film, and it's basically like an art piece based on the creator's dreams and ideas, and it's really nuts. It's done by Phil Tippett, and if you're a film person, you may recognize that name. He is a special effects artist, a very recognized one. He did special effects on um, Star Wars, the original Star Wars movies, and Jurassic Park. My goodness, what else? Um, RoboCop, Starship Troopers, all kinds of stuff. So kind of amazing. But this was his project. It's something that he worked on. He'd started it 30 years ago, and then got like 6 minutes of it done, and then it sat around for about 20 years, not moving very much, and then he got on to finishing it. And it is very, very artsy. It is very focused on perhaps describing heaven and hell, the idea of what those might be, or an angry God. It's I don't know that it's definitely not what I would call religious. It is very much somebody's work of art, and it is, well, I was, especially the beginning of it is just some of the most disturbing stuff. And that's coming from me, big time horror movie fan. Very, some very disturbing imagery and ideas and things, but also kind of gorgeous. I saw it on, it was on Shudder, but if it's on Shudder, that means it's on probably some other platforms. It might be on Prime, and if you have access to AMC, because Shudder is owned by AMC, it might be there as well. Yeah, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. In the beginning, I was like, wow, this is very disturbing, even for me. Like, it gives you this almost like sick feeling watching a bunch of it. But then once you get past the first like 25 minutes or so, then it gets, then you start to see some of the kind of dark humor in parts of it, and just the weirdness. I mean, weirdness doesn't even begin to describe it. It's nuts. But if you're okay with that and you're not I would say, don't too easily offended or too easily disgusted, and it is a very interesting watch. Definitely not something I'd recommend to like my family, but man, it's gorgeous. The textures and the detail. It's so messed up, but it's so beautiful too. It's really something. And it fascinates me how long it took for it to be done. It's when he started working to really finish it, so I was watching an interview with him, and that was super interesting too. Because he talks a lot about, like, people want to know the meaning. What's the meaning? And he's like, well, it's just what came to me, partially in like maybe dreams, and then just from there, like what he thought would be cool and what would work with it. I mean, the idea, where do our ideas come from, is endlessly fascinating and mystical almost. It's not. It's like I don't prescribe any supernatural thing to it, but it is fantastically weird to think about where, how and where and why for everybody. Once he started really getting it going, there were the people that worked for him, um, making movies, would come in, maybe stay a little bit after work, come in on weekends and work a few hours, and then it was like kids in schools around the area would want to work on it and come and spend hours and hours. Things would take, 3 years to get one scene that was 3 seconds long, to create all the background and the characters and everything that would be in it. It's really, really interesting and cool, and I love how so many people were involved. Ended up being involved. And just imagine how much fun that would be to get involved in a project like that. Or just like every weekend, just go and like work on this insane, artistic, weird, fantastic nightmare thing with all these other creative people. I think that must have been just super cool for the people that got to be involved in it. And that project went on a long time. And then I believe he had trouble getting it to be picked up anywhere. Submitted it to like festivals and things, and people would not want to show it. No, just rejections. And as artists, we're all familiar with rejections. That happens. But yeah, there's also a familiarity, and I don't have anything that's gone on that long, but the project that you start and then think maybe I'll go back to it, and then you think maybe you won't, and then one day maybe you do, and it's so many years later possibly. I've had some things. I still have things that I've started ages ago, and they're just floating around as these ideas that, if I'm going to go back to them, probably need a lot of revising, but it's just, there's always something knocking around, half-finished projects that you hold on to. Maybe one day. It's always the maybe one day. Okay, I might be pretty good shape for my warm layers here. Lift a little color here, I think, if I can, without destroying the paper too much. I like this Arches paper. It's not their most expensive pads. Like, it's not the hot press or that sort of thing, but it is a very nice paper to work on nonetheless. And as much as I hate it for it to be true, I'm sure many people do, oftentimes you get what you pay for, and the what you pay for makes a difference when it comes to these things. I'm somebody who likes to stretch a dollar, let me tell you. But yeah, it does. Cheap watercolor paper can just make the process very, very frustrating and much more difficult than it needs to be. If not, sometimes just impossible. Okay. Just looking at where I've maybe lost some highlights. If I can pull back a little bit. It's always better to have it marked clearly so you don't paint over what you don't want to paint in the beginning. That is the ideal situation, of course, when you're working with watercolor. I don't always do great with plans. It's always best intentions and all, but nonetheless. Okay. Just one more spot. And then I'll let this dry a little bit. And then I'll move on to my cool shades. At which point I'm going to need to really also decide how worried am I about realistic color or not. How much is that something I want to achieve? Usually not that big of a deal to me. I'm also going to, when I'm thinking about it, pull in some shadow and put some warm tone in the shadow as well, parts of it at least. All right. It's always nice to, ground your finger a little bit. They actually exist in space, maybe. All right. Not feeling too bad about it. It's quite light in the camera. Let me try a quick adjustment here. That's a little truer to what I'm seeing with the color like that. So hopefully that helps to see what I'm working on here. And the character that I have up here, like this part of the illustration or painting, whatever you want to call it, she might get like partially covered in spots. She'll be like peeking through. But I think still an interesting component in terms of what she's from and what she means in the larger scope of this piece. I might do most of what I'm going to have happen on here as like the thoughts are probably going to be a lot of mixed media elements, like some opaque paints, like acrylic paint perhaps, and collage elements and different things. But I'm going to put a little wash on here to just kind of get it going. Just getting my paper a little bit damp so the paint will move a little bit. little mopper here. And let's see. Try to keep it plenty wet. Just sort of let the paint happen. The dry bits over here. There we go. I don't know how much of this will ultimately be visible when I'm done with it, but kind of wanted a little underlying bits here. Kind of fun to just let the watercolor do what it wants to do. It's a very unwieldy medium sometimes. All right, let's see. If you're worried about my brush, don't be. This is a 60-year-old brush, so my expectations of its lifespan are not very strong. Not too worried about it. Case in point, it's leaving a few bristles around. I mean, it's not a bad brush. It's a squirrel hair one, but it wasn't, I don't think, a very, high-end one. We'll see. All right, that's going to have to dry a little bit before I can get much more off of it. Meanwhile, just when I say that I'm going to leave something alone and let it be, surefire, I'm going to pick up the brush and keep going. I'm just adding in some purple that I mix here with a little bit of blue, kind of down the center of some of these little tendrils that are coming out. It's interesting. It's kind of pushing away the red rather than mixing with it. All right. Well, I think that starts to drive the idea. That's in my mind. I'm not sure how much of this we'll see in the end. but it'll be there. Okay, for well, for where it is so far, I'm happy with the beginning stages of the painting. Just some lay down warm tones, getting the idea of the overwhelming thoughts, everything in the mind going out, traveling around. So I think that I'm not going to be too concerned about super realistic coloration. We'll go a little intuitive on this one, a little bit. But this is a good place to start. So we'll let this dry a little bit. Maybe I'll do one more layer at least while we're going. Oh, and I bookmarked a section in my little How to Be an Artist book by Jerry Saltz that I've been reading from now and again that I really, really, really like. And I'm going to just pull it out. It's number 35. Make strength out of weakness. And I love that. This is just the greatest thing. Matisse rarely painted feet. When he did, they're ugly flippers or paws. He mostly hid or extended them beyond the frame. He was exaggerating weakness, putting his shortcomings right there on the canvas and making it work. Once you notice this, you'll see it throughout his career. Be Matisse. If you paint awkwardly, make it work for you. Awkwardness can be a locomotive of emotion and formal intelligence. Look at the stodgy blockiness of Edward Hopper's figures. And there's an image here. One of his paintings. How he sometimes overworks things. How he has a boxy way of painting men and a pervy way of painting women. Often breaking perspective just to be able to paint a woman's nipple or some other naughty bit. The war inside Hopper is raging on the surface of his paintings. Or take the transcendentally yearning, ham-handed awkwardness of Marsden Hartley. Even Goya, arguably, could be awkward. You can be too. And I love that. These people are awkward. You can be too. But it's so close to home, I think. Like, maybe, is it just me? I often feel incredibly awkward. I think there are many things I am awkward at and as a human being and as an artist. And so, yeah, embrace the awkward. It's fine. Learn to work with it and make it your thing. So I really love that little bit. I wanted to share during a little intermission while it gets this layer dry. Actually, look pretty. The background doing that helps for this part to get a little bit dry. I'm always feeling awkward, embarrassing it or embracing it. Yeah. I feel like I could give everybody a run for their money in awkwardness. It's just you just learn, yeah, gotta learn to laugh at it a little bit. We just are what we are. Humans, we're all a little weird. Okay, so next stage will be some cool tones, and I think I'm going to go into some like cooler side blues for that. So let's see. It would be a little more cool than I really want. Let's see. A little darker anyway, more neutral. I'm excited about experimenting with the gouache paint. I just ordered a set of acrylic gouache. And I don't know anything. Like, I used gouache when I was in college, which was only, just a few years ago. So it's been a long time since I've used it. And I think that it wasn't acrylic gouache when I used it back then, and I didn't entirely realize which one I was ordering when I ordered it. I can be honest about that. I just bought a set, and then I got it, and then I started being like, oh, okay, how do I use this? But I like the idea that it's somewhere between, watercolor and acrylic painting. I like the opaqueness of the color, the matte quality of it is really interesting to me. So I'm kind of, I'm excited to give it a try. Probably just do a few little things in Sketchbook and see how that goes to start, and see if I can start incorporating it into things, or where I decide it fits. But it's just like this inability to just know when to draw a line in terms of like what I'm doing at any given time. Like, oh, I want to learn to do this new thing. And while I'm at it, let me also learn to do all these other new things too. So, yeah, not always the best approach, perhaps. Like, again, it's the bowl in the china shop. Just, I see the thing, I gotta try it and see what I can do with it. But it does keep me interested and curious, and I think that helps with the creative process. There's so many things that I want to learn and try and to like really explore more. So many things. It's so hard to just like ever be satisfied with anything. I don't know that we ever need to be satisfied with anything. Like, growing as people or as artists or whatever, creators of any sort, is a good thing for us to do. But I don't make it easy on myself in terms of like knowing when to pull back and like, okay, we've got a lot on our plate and we're already trying to do this other thing too, so maybe we should relax a little bit and put that on the back burner for another time. Crazy talk. I'm of the opinion the more you learn about different mediums, and you are right to explore, it keeps you fresh. I think I like that idea, and I think that it not just gives you new ideas, but it just rounds you out in other ways. I was actually watching some videos by Alpay Fa, who's an artist on YouTube, and he talked about that a little bit, about the idea of being a jack of all trades being a really good quality to have as an artist. That everything that you learn about doing everything different ultimately feeds anything else that you're doing. I really like that. I mean, that's just a quality that goes along with being an ADHD artist as well. Like, the being drawn to the novel things, the wanting to try stuff constantly. What's the new rabbit hole to go down? And I've done that with many things, needless to say. Deciding I needed to learn how to program my own websites and teach myself HTML and CSS and then never ever use it again. Deciding it was important that I learned how to animate in After Effects and then doing some things with that and then never again. All the things. Like, last summer deciding I really need to know how to use epoxy. Need to, not want to, need to, right now, let's do it now. So that sort of thing. It's kind of funny. But I do think that knowledge feeds into everything that we know, adds to who we are, and can be applied in surprising ways to different things. And there's an extension of that quote. It stretches your brain. Yes, my brain needs all the stretching it can get. There's an extension to that quote, if I understand correctly. The jack of all trades, master of none, that actually brings it around to be a positive trait. Can't remember it now. I believe that I heard something along those lines at some point. Yeah, that is definitely the way, though. I know knowing a lot of things about a lot, knowing a few things about a lot of things. And always being drawn to something different to learn about. Keeps life interesting, that's for sure. You don't get bored. This weekend, I finally set up and tried to sew. I got out my sewing machine that I've owned for 20 years. I managed to actually get it threaded, amazingly enough. I got a little bit of sewing done, and then the little spool that goes in there ran out, so I'd have to like completely unthread it and refill up that spool, recharge that spool, whatever, I don't know the terminology, and all that stuff. And then I just like, okay, I'm gonna walk away from this now, and I got to that point. But it's all still out. It's on my kitchen table. I would like to at least finish the shirt that I'm starting to do. And of course, I thought that picking, like, I have this, it's like a tank top that I own that I really love, and I wore it a ton, and now it's like practically worn out. So I'm like, oh, I'll just try to reverse engineer. It's 2 pieces of fabric. I'll measure, cut those out, and sew them together. Well, there's turns out that there's these rounded hems around the neckline and all that, and apparently that is a complicated thing to do. Lo and behold, I did not know this. So thinking that I'd started out with something simple that I would be able to handle well and easily, ended up being a little bit more complicated than I had originally thought. But I'm gonna finish this darn shirt. I swear, I don't know if it will be wearable when I'm done with it, but I want to do it. I'm determined. But I'm still proud of myself because I've owned this thing for forever. And I never successfully had threaded it before. And I actually managed to do that. So, celebrate some wins sometimes, just little things. But yeah, hopefully this week I will get that done and be able to show off here. If I really stick to the guns, as I would like to, in theory, I would try to have it done by my next stream. See, if it's wearable, I will try to wear it then. A lot of ifs there in that statement. Try again. We will give it the best try I got in me. Yeah, that goes along with me trying to also learn how to use gouache and everything else. Just steam it well. It will look great there. Yes. I even did. I got out my iron, something that gets very little attention and use around here, and gave it a real, well, all right, well, I'm going to be honest because this is definitely very much a me thing. I did a good job of ironing one of the hems really well, and then after that, I'm like, it's fine. And I didn't do it with the second one I did. Tell you, I am my own worst enemy. That is the truth. This is coming around along all right, I think. After this, I might need to do one more layer just for the sake of like really punching up darks and contrast. But this might actually work out to just be 2 or 3 layers, which is pretty exciting. I think with that shirt though that I'm working on, I also probably picked a difficult fabric too, because it's a very like thin, stretchy kind of version of a jersey fabric. It's definitely got some maybe spandex in it. So I don't make things easy on myself. Which of course carries the risk of it's not going to go well, so I will get frustrated and give up and not go back to a thing. But because it depends on how dire my desire to learn about something is, whether I keep up with it or not. Something like that that's very ancillary and just is like, well, it would be cool to know. Um, as I fling my brush for no particular reason, are at risk of being chopped very, very easily. Probably wait till I'm going to do the ear because it's like super, super deep right now, but I might put off till the end doing the rest of the face. Maybe. As long as we're here. All right. trying to keep track of how one dark is relating to another dark can get a little away from me if I'm not careful. Whoa, that got weird. Okay. That got weird. I can hear cicadas outside. It happens every summer around here. It's really, literally every summer. It's nuts. Very, very noisy. And it doesn't seem to be everywhere around us. It's like almost specifically this neighborhood. There's other family and friends in the area. They say they don't notice or hear them, but man, we should do. Trying to get this shadow right in the face. Didn't I say just a few minutes ago that I wasn't going to do the face right now? Oh well. Dangerously close to overworking this face. All right. Maybe a little eyebrow, and then we're going to call it for now. I'm going to walk away before I really mess anything up. No, that was a mess up. Wasn't that good? Anyway. Let me just leave that. I'm not making it any better. Okay, back to the ear that I can handle. Ear is actually some of the highest contrast little spot in the whole image. I like ears, they're so weird. Just gonna apply a little bit of the hair here without getting too detailed in it because of what's happening there. I just don't want there to be anything too specific happening there. There's a weird delineation of an almost straight line that I really want to get rid of. Okay, now that I've done that, that's really what. Every now and again, you just see something, you're like, no, that's not what I want to be there. Still there a little bit, but I'll probably just need to let this dry better to really get rid of that. You can kind of see it here. There's like this line happening. And that just has to do with, I think, like there's a little bit of a buckle in the paper there, a very slight one where the paper's been wet. So it's doing some interesting things. All right. That's gonna need to wait until it's dry to really fix anything. Okay. And I keep looking at the computer screen to like really see what's happening because I'm, only a foot and a half away from it, sitting here. It gets a little distorted where I don't necessarily see some of the big picture stuff. Okay. So I need to get some more of my blue color mixed here. Just went right through it. All right. Now continuing, let's see, where to next? Do this other leg. I'm working my way out. Oh. Feet are kind of another one of those things, sort of like ears, where they're sort of weird and interesting. And they can be both fun and difficult to paint, equally both. So many bones and wrinkles and things that happen. I mean, toes are weird. It's hard to argue that toes are just kind of weird. A little bit of a reflective highlight happening in the leg, but I need this to not be so wet to paint in the shadow to show that. It's such a drone. The sounds of the cicadas outside, they're just this constant droning pitch. Adding back in some red where I need a little punch of it in a couple spots probably as I work through here. Cicadas in the Chicago area at least have rhythm. Ours here are boring, long tone. Yeah, they individually like rise and fall, but when they're all going, it just there's a subtle rise and fall to it that you still hear, but it does kind of become just a drone, and it's kind of in a way that you almost don't hear it after a while. It becomes just like white noise, but um, it's definitely been loud enough here that, like on a nice night when you have the doors open, if you're trying to watch something on TV, you can't you can't hear it. The sound of them is so loud. And they've only just shown up again here uh, this weekend. I just noticed them this last weekend. So it's been a little while since we've heard them, but they're here. Escaping those little boogers. gotta do this arm for sure. All right, I think this part's dry enough where I can kind of paint the shadow that becomes uh, that will create the reflected highlight. Not the steadiest hands right now. Okay, cleaning up this line here. Just a little bit of overpainted. So not too bad to pick that up. I'm kind of working at my second and third layer both at the same time a little bit. As long as I am painting with this, I'm kind of going back and getting as parts dry, beefing up the shadows where they need to be. Once you put down one layer, then you can see where another layer needs more or less to stand correctly against the one you just put down. Sometimes it mostly is okay, but a couple of areas where I just didn't have my red saturated enough. All right. Couple more spots. Need to get darker over here. adding more purple also into the darkest areas, besides just the blue. All right, the last component is this arm. And this neck area that I didn't quite finish here. I think I'm getting really close to needing to go and get my eyes checked. So usually if I'm experiencing a lot of like fatigue, like I'm just now noticing that as I'm working on this, kind of not wanting to focus as well. That's probably means that it's about time for me to go check my prescription lenses and see if I'm still good. Technically prescription lens at this point. One eye's okay. Randomly. First, we'll see if it stays that way with the one eye being mostly okay. Imagine that'll change over time too. And just a few little bits on the hand here. And I think it's just going to be, I'm going to add a little bit more to the shadow underneath. So just put the warm tone into the shadow so far. Ah! Second time today I randomly thrown my brush for no reason. Don't know why. Don't know how it happened, but I swear it just jumped. Checking for my warm yellow color real quick before I completely move along. Got something weird going here. Hold on. All that stuff in here, that all the parts gets a little crazy and complicated, so it's easy to lose track of what you got there. I'm trying to not do that. One thing too, in my reference photo, um, there's hair covering some of this, so I'm kind of filling in some gaps myself for my own brain of what I'm trying to create there, for better or worse. Yeah, from this angle, all the weird structural bits can look a little crazy, like weird. Okay, let's see here. And here, it's a little harder. I keep making adjustments to my shadow tones and things, what's dark enough, what isn't. Um, Another thing is as the paints dry, they will look probably lighter. So there may still be one more adjustment layer to go on after this. But this is pretty close to about what I want out of this piece. I'm not going for realism. Trying to just kind of capture things, but yeah, I need there to be appropriate weight to her too. So that will be the last determining details. So what needs to be much darker or not against the thing that's next to it? Or do I really need to really pull that in? But I do think after I finish this little bit here, let's see if I can correct this. Okay, I'm gonna throw in some cool shades in the shadow, like I said an hour ago. Then it might be a good time to call it a night once I do this shadow. And then this will be about like waiting for it, letting it dry, and revisiting it at that point. And maybe a little bit of like sleeping on it, you know. Sometimes when it gets to be a certain point of the evening, if you get tired, and if you know you get affected by being tired at all, sometimes you just have to know when to call it for your own sake, for not destroying the work. I'm actually pretty happy with this. I'm like with my attempt to make this not 4 million layers to keep it a little bit more vibrant than sometimes my work could be in the past. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I think I could do like tweak the feet a little bit. And maybe the face I hear. I don't want to get too muddy there though. But just about some darks in the feet mainly will be the things. Do I dream about my work and finish areas? I do. I have. That's been a more recent thing, but I've had that sometimes happen where I'm actually working on a project in my dreams, whether it's something I'm actually in real life working on or something completely different. And it becomes very like all encompassing while you're sleeping. And then there is that little bit of maybe frustration when you wake up and realize, but I didn't actually accomplish anything. There was no paintbrush in my hand, actually. So yeah, that's kind of a funny thing. Very interesting. But I guess, I don't know, maybe it's like dreaming about homework or... See, I'm more likely to be the person to like dream that I'm forgetting to do something I need to do. That is more typical in my experience, but yeah, you know. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this guy for now. So, while I am still fully lucid about my wits, good time to call it a night before I do screw anything up, because that's usually what happens about now. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll decide that this is just fine and I'll work from there. I'll find out tomorrow when I walk in the door first thing in the morning with my cup of coffee. So thank you again for watching. Hope you got some creative juices flowing or some project working going on too. I will be back at it on Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Yeah, Watson never came in today. He must be having a really good nap somewhere. He usually does pop by, but yeah, I'm sure he will. In mornings, he is this big time to come in and remind me that it's almost lunchtime. But yes, good night. Thank you. I will hopefully see you on Thursday. Bye.